you guys. My name is Ashley, and I'm the Membership and Development Director for Friends of the Clearwater. We're based in Moscow, Idaho, and our mission is we're a grassroots advocacy group that seeks protection for the wildlands, waterways, and wildlife of the Clearwater Basin. And so for those of you who may be unfamiliar, our mission area goes from the St. Joe River, where the North Fork of the Clearwater headwaters are, down to the Salmon River, where the Selway River headwaters are, and then over from the Idaho-Washington border to the Montana-Idaho border. So we have a big mission area. And so tonight, Ron is just going to be showing you one of the roadless areas on the Nez Perce Clearwater National Forest, the Meadow Creek roadless area, which is 215,000 acres of roadless country. So we're really excited to have Ron here tonight. He's going to show us his photography and give us a little background about his trip out there, and then at the end I'm going to give you a try to be as quick as I can issues update about what's happening on the Nez Perce Clearwater National Forest. We've had a lot of victories, a lot of issues that we're working on right now. We have a forest plan revision process that's happening, so lots of ways that you can be involved in protecting some of the wildest country left in the lower 48. And so just to introduce you to Ron a little bit, Ron is a retired professional environmentalist. He worked for 31 years as a city-county health department, with a city-county health department in Nebraska as a field environmental health specialist. He specialized in public and private safe drinking water supplies and private individual wastewater treatment systems. He has a master's of science in zoology and physiology from the University of Nebraska. He now enjoys his work as a volunteer conservationist defending wildlife and wildlands. And he's a member of Friends of the Clearwater. He's a member of Wilderness Watch, who is here tonight. So if you're not familiar with their work, check out their work on the table right over here. And then the Center for Biological Diversity and other conservation groups. So we appreciate your commitment to conservation and preservation, and take it away.
All right.
Thanks.
Well, thank you, Ashley. I actually wish my mother could have been here to hear that. But after 15 days backpacking solo and no talking, it's a wonder I even know how to talk, but I'll do my best. Let me begin by saying it is a privilege to be in public wildlands. To go on a photographic journey, and there are two levels of discovery. Level number one is being there. Seeing the land and the wildlife that lives there. Number two discovery is in field guide books. Later, after you return from one of the experiences with nature, the process of identifying the wildlife in the images begins by careful observation of each photo to discover what's there. In this presentation, I will name the wildlife that I'm reasonably certain to have correctly identified. I do just consider myself an amateur biologist. So I've also added probably twice the biodiversity images, so bear with me if I go faster through some, because I want time at the end. I do like to talk with the audience for any questions, comments, or corrections. Now, there's another important point I need to clarify, and that is my method of travel in natural areas. Two terms come to mind: bushwhacking and trekking. Now, I went to the dictionary and looked up bushwhacking, and the definition of bushwhacking is cutting through the brush. Now, I don't cut through the brush. I don't do that. Then I checked the definition, the first definition of trekking, and it was traveling by ox cart. And I don't do that either. The second definition had 3 words that I can work with. And those 3 words are making one's way. So, here's my definition of traveling through natural areas in wildlands. Making one's way on foot, slowly, backpacking in the natural areas that do not have established hiking trails. And that's what you do when you go into Meadow Creek. Okay, so now let's take this photo journey in the big wild of north central Idaho in the Nez Perce National Forest and the upper reach of Meadow Creek. Here's the first part of that trip is the sign, the Nez Perce Trail, about 10 miles up. And okay, about 10 miles up the trail is Mountain Meadows, and this is Sunrise. This is a spring-fed tributary in the origin of Meadow Creek at Sunrise, and this is a very wet meadow at the origin of Meadow Creek. Car camping at the campground and getting the pack ready for an early start. This is rough cinquefoil, the common name, and Potentilla norvegica, the scientific name. Note the leaves are on the stems and they're in leaflets of 3. Most Potentilla have leaflets of 5 to 9. In the genus name, Potentilla comes from potent, Latin, which means potent or powerful, because this plant has been used to treat gastroenteritis problems and inflammation, and research continues to see if it's effective on colitis. A mule deer and a little fawn, because this is early in early in June 10, and this is the only mule deer I've ever seen in the upper reach of Meadow Creek. Yeah, I think I'm going to get it here pretty soon. This is the 4 Mile Creek campsite, and this is a spruce fir cluster that provides shelter and shade and protection because there's a lot of burned areas and there's dangerous snags. So you got to get your tent in a safe place. And this is my bivy tent. And in the big meadow there by Meadow Creek, in the morning you usually see white-tailed deer, a young spruce in the foreground, and Engelmann spruce and subalpine fir in the background to show one of the views that you see in the Meadow Creek area. These are the spruce, Engelmann spruce male cones. Tap the cone and you get a stream of pollen. Shake the branch and you get a cloud of pollen. And here's a mature spruce cone. Sitka valerian is the flower in the foreground and Meadow Creek in the background. It was first described in Sitka, Alaska in the 1830s. Idaho bluebell. Heartleaf Alexander's is this flower. I should say probably. A hermit thrush. A young red-tailed hawk in a nest. An adult red-tailed hawk landing. And screaming. Another adult red-tailed hawk. 2 red-tailed hawk young in the nest. A down snag and lodgepole pine in the background, and you can see the part of the burned area that's several miles along Meadow Creek. Some burned art on the snag. And here's some zigzag art. There's raised areas on the heartwood just below the cambium, and when the late afternoon sun shines on there, you get this design. Here's a close-up of it. A burl on a lodgepole burned snag. Tree cricket, classified in the family Gorillidae. Insects, it's hard to get them to genus species. Sometimes just the family. And this is a March fly, or another name, common name, is lovebug. And they're noted for their huge swarms in late spring and early summer. They were everywhere, on the trees, on the tent, and in the air. In this next photo, I decided to call this insect a love bug. And these are two love bugs mating. And they're dimorphic, sexual dimorphic, which means the male looks tremendously different than the female, and the head has huge bulbous eyes that take up almost all the head. Field chickweed, the flower, 5 deeply notched petals. Lupin in a huge big meadow beside Meadow Creek. This is big-leafed lupin, and you can see those leaves are palmately, 5 to 11 leaflets. This is the flower spike of a lupin, and I set up carefully to photograph this. And while I was taking my time to do this, nearby I noticed a twitching in the grass. And I slowly moved over to that area and focused down. And it was a vole. I was amazed that it just froze in place and let me get down and focus on it. You can see here the eye, the nose, here's the head and an ear, and here's its tail. And it's not bicolored, so it's probably a meadow vole. Okay, I'm not going to risk going back. This is the hooked violet, and it gets its name, it's Viola adnuca, scientific name, and it comes from this bottom petal has a spur or a hook on it. I used to call them blue violets, but I found out they're hooked violets. This is a click beetle. Note the pronotum extends back on both sides, and the antennae are very close to the eyes. Another campsite, and woke up in the morning, and I noticed it was really white out in the sky. Here it is, the middle of June on Meadow Creek. We got a little snow. Actually, a lot of snow. Next day, wouldn't know there was snow the previous day. Same view. And this is right over Meadow Creek. This is a large downed spruce tree that fell down on the cut bank side of the creek. And this thing was 10 feet high, soil root ball, 20 feet wide. It was huge. And there was a patch of foam on Meadow Creek, but I see no evidence of use of soap in Meadow Creek. So it must be nature's natural foam. So after leaving and packing up there, I went trekking in the riparian area, and I saw this piece of civilization. It looks out of place in a natural area. When going into meadows, I paused at the forest edge, and I was able to see this deer before it detected me. However, see something suspicious because it's raising the white flag, a white-tailed deer. Almost all the deer I've ever seen there are white-tailed deer. I moved out in the meadow. The deer ran into the forest. And here's this sign up on a tree, close the gate, but there's no evidence of a fence or a gate. And this is about 2 miles from the Antiquities Act log cabin that's on Meadow Creek. Vole droppings, big pile of them. Close up, it appears they must have a latrine under the snow in the wintertime. I've never seen this before. Here's a huge wet seep on a steep bank of Meadow Creek in the background, and there were sedges and mosses and shooting stars on there, and I trekked through this area on a deer and elk trail. Jeffrey's shooting star. A large drop of water on big-leafed lupin. Another tree had fallen across Meadow Creek from the cut bank side, created a little dam and waterfall. Trekking through the brush, I flushed up this bird, flew in a tree, and I got this photo of a ruffed grouse, and note the feathers are wet. That's from 2 days on and off of drizzle and light rain. Young corn lily, early in the morning. Meadow Creek in the background. More on corn lilies later. Here I am at breakfast at this downed log picnic table. 2 days of on and off rain. You see my clothes drying on the tree. The sun came through there. I was in the shade, dried them out, and my gear, and my fire ring. And notice my boots, completely soaked. Even for 2 days, I got completely soaked. Not only the drizzle and the rain, but walking through the wet marsh grass. You're just wet all the time. I was comfortable, and the reason is I was wearing wool. And wool will keep you warm, even if you're soaked. So I had a medium wool pants, wool shirt, and a sweater. And here I am, drink 2 cups of coffee in the morning, and I'm regularly 1.5 pounds lighter. 12-inch knife is what I dig my cat hole with. And there's a earth plug to top it off. Here's the earth plug. Ziploc bags are really great when it's raining out to keep that toilet paper dry, and also wet ones. You pack that out. A large ancient Engelmann spruce provides really good shelter, and it's dry around the base. Here's the entrance. And I tie the entrance open with cord so I don't break any of the branches. Here's a close-up of the entrance and the foot of my bivy tent. And notice this little spruce tree. I left it undamaged to grow big, even though it was in front of my entry. Didn't want to hurt it. Inside, underneath all of the sheltered limbs of a spruce tree, it's dry in there in a duff that's nice for a background for your tent. Clothes are drying. All of the self-pruned dead branches provide a lot of nice clothes hangers. It's amazing how good of a shelter a big tree like that offers when you're backpacking. Now here I am trekking in the trail. About a 3-foot diameter spruce, you got to push the branches away, and that's there's no established trails here. But there's something pretty blue collar over here, and it's in the phlox family of plants, and it was collected by Lewis and Clark in June of 1806. And here I am 210 years later, and I'm photographing the flower that they collect, not the one they collected, but this is a showy pulmonium. It's a beautiful little flower. Here's a huge outcrop about 250 feet high, and this is where Meadow Creek really drops steep, and it makes a hairpin turn. And across from that outcrop, more outcrops and trees and brush. It is not practical to trek on the banks of Meadow Creek in this area. And so that was my turning point, 18 miles from the Mountain Meadows campground, and I turned around and went back the way I came. Set up my breakfast, boiled my water, fire ring, steamed my 7 whole grain cereal with raisins and cranberries, and I was on my way. Structure in Meadow Creek, down trees and snags, bunch of yellow flowers on the bank. Sharp leaf buttercup, lobes of 3, and leaflets on the stem. Very pointed, sharp lobes. There's the flower, the shiny yellow, a buttercup. And I have 2 more later. I think I have 2 other species, probably. Talk about those later. Here I am trekking in the riparian area, and here's this log I have to climb over, and I see this yellow-orange. There it is. Is that yellow-orange? Mm-hmm. Okay. That's jelly fungi, and it's also known as witch's butter. Mosquito on my arm. This is the unmarked slender mosquito. That's actually the common name. Got a close-up here. Has a very slender abdomen and pointed. Here, look at that proboscis coming around, sucking blood. Now this is a neat-looking yellow flower, and I thought, boy, I've got something here. But notice there a stem, no leaves on the stem, and lobes pointing backward on the bottom. That's a common dandelion, something you have in your front yard. And here's starry false Solomon. Here are the flowers. And here's a little patch of white flowers. What are they? The common name is actually little white violets. The smallest violet in Idaho. And you can note the little purple lines in here. I guess that's ultraviolet. When the bees see it, go right in there and get the nectar. Some more small white flowers. These are strawberries, wild strawberries. Fragaria virginiana. Frag is Latin for strawberry. There are the strawberries at the bottom, on the ground in the back, and an unidentified shrub. Close-up of the unidentified shrub. And this is probably Scholar's willow. Note the yellowish-brown branches. And it's very plentiful on the banks of Meadow Creek. 18 miles. This is the only fern I ever saw in Meadow Creek. And these fern fronds look like the picture in the field guide of rattlesnake fern, probably. I'm not sure. These are larkspur, and it's a rocky slope. Lots of larkspur out there, and that rocky slope is steep and goes all the way down to Meadow Creek. And there's a close-up. This plant is poisonous to livestock. Large flowered triplet lily. Look at that long stem. No leaves. And these are tepals. The outer tepals are unruffled. The 3 inner are ruffled tepals. Here I am up about 150 feet, the side of a canyon, pretty steep slope, and it shows Meadow Creek and what it likes to do in all rivers and creeks. They like to meander. This is looking at Meadow Creek in the early morning, looking east. Here's where I took the picture, the previous image. I was up about that high. This is Meadow Creek in the afternoon, and note this area here. I'll talk about it later in the meadow. Something happened in the night. And this section is my high campsite. It's about 50 feet up on a steep slope and from the creek. And it's very hard to find a level spot for a tent. That's where a bivy tent really comes in. You can get in tight places with a bivy tent. And in sunrise in the morning, there were actually 2 bucks went across. They were moving fast, and I was able to get the last one. And they were nervous, and they were looking over their shoulder. So evidently there's some predators around there that have been after them. This is a large lodgepole pine to see what the bark looks like. It's about 30 inches across at eye level. The branches of lodgepole pine, some cones of various stages of development. And here's a developing lodgepole pine cone. And notice the bundles are about 2 inches long. Ponderosa pine. These are the only ponderosa pine I saw in the 18-mile upper stretch of Meadow Creek. And they're up there about 150 feet where I took the picture of Meadow Creek. And I stayed there 2 nights, and the second night I did hear paw steps close to my tent. And the next day I went down to that point I indicated in the meadow, and it was worked over and matted down. The bear had been there. And the corn lily was matted down, the marsh grass, but he was eating, the bear was eating cow parsnips. These are the cow parsnips. Here's a close-up of cow parsnips leaves. A stonefly in the insect order Plecoptera. Ptera means wing. The pleco means leaves laid on top of each other. And stoneflies, mayflies, and caddisflies are used to assess the health of a stream. 2 water striders mating. Those 4 back legs are covered with hydrophobic microhairs, and that's how they float on the surface tension. The 2 front legs are shorter, and that's how they grab their prey to eat food. This stone in the Clearwater Meadow Creek appeared to have a bunch of aquatic snails on it, but they weren't. It was a northern caddisfly larva case. This is from the case maker, northern caddisfly larva, made of bits of vegetation. And here is genus Platycentropus with its case. And this is in the order Trichoptera. It's kind of filament hairy wings. And this Platycentropus caddisfly larva, and all caddisfly larvae, will develop and emerge as adults that look very similar to little moths that hold their wings roof-like over their bodies. This is another caddisfly larva. This is the trumpet netmaker larva without its net, genus Neuroclipsis. And it feeds on blackfly larvae. And notice the black spots around its head. Here we have Neuroclipsis. Sometimes we get close to Platycentropus, and when they got close and they was lunging forward, Neuroclipsis rolled into a ball. Seemed to be a defensive behavior for protection. And this is probably Diomoecus larva. They first start out their case with bits of grass and twigs, and then as they develop, they switch over to fine gravel. Okay, this is a dasher skimmer dragonfly larva. And this larva, the rear end of their abdomen breathes, takes in oxygen, and their gills are inside their rectum, and they breathe that way. This is the front end of the dasher skimmer dragonfly larva. Not the big eyes, but they're most noted for their lower lip is called a killer lip. And it's quite a structure that has been evolved probably by evo-devo processes. And evo-devo is a short version of evolutionary development. And evolutionary biologists tell us that evo-devo was probably responsible for lots of novel features in organisms in the course of the evolution and history of life on Earth. And looks like dasher is one of them. And some of those lower killer lips, that's how they catch their prey, some of them have skewers on them. So it's a pretty effective predator. And now here's the dasher and Platysynthropus, and when they get close together, and Platysynthropus sees killer lip, he starts to withdraw into his case. Okay, this is another sharp leaf valerian. And Valeriana is the genus name, and it comes from the Latin word valeri, which means healthy, and it's been used as, in the roots, it has valerianic acid, and it's used as a sedative. Close up, and you can see the leaves pointed sharply. Okay, this is a large rock outcrop about 20 feet high. It juts out over Meadow Creek. Here we're looking down in the clear water of Meadow Creek from on top of this rock. Here we're looking across from the rock on a spruce tree over the creek. Here we're looking west, here we're looking east on top of this rock. Here's the Scholar's willow, subalpine fir and spruce in the background. A large still pool and the Meadow Creek in the background. Either a female or a juvenile merganser on Meadow Creek. Meadow, western meadow rue, and those are the sepals of the flowers. And this is a corn lily. This is where it got its name. You can see how that developing big bud looks kind of like an ear of corn. And this is when corn lily is really flowered out in late June. And every part of that plant is poisonous to humans. Okay, this is a hairy, dusky wing skipper. And it's identified by the upper forewings that have white hairs on the male. And here's an enlargement of the anterior end to separate skippers from butterflies. On their antennae, they have boomerang-shaped bent clubs. And that separates the skipper butterfly from the regular butterflies. And we've probably all seen these. These are pocket gophers. They burrow in the snow, and then they push loose soil up in those burrows, and then when the snow melts, we've got these little cores in the spring. Spotted frog. I don't know if it's at Columbia or an Oregon spotted frog. You see quite a few of those along Meadow Creek. Alpine speedwell, probably. I'm not sure. But it has 4 petals. Ballhead groundsel. Flowers are in a bunch on the top. And this is showy pussy willow in a drier area of the meadow. Here's rosy pussy willow. It gets its common name from the cluster of flowers that are shaped like the digital pads of a house cat. Blue-eyed grass. And yes, some species of grass actually have flowers. Yellow monkey flower, every part of that plant is edible, but it's salty. They absorb salt from the meadows in the soil. Probably another ground cell, but this is one that has only one flower at the end of the stem. False azalea. The leaves are elliptical on the ends of the stems, and it has the red urn-shaped flowers. Trapper's tea, leathery leaves, stamens, numerous on the outside, bundles of flowers on the end of the leaves. It said that the field guide said they didn't know where the origin of trapper tea came from, but they don't recommend making tea out of it because the plant is poisonous. White-tailed deer in the middle of the day, taking a quick drink out of Meadow Creek. Another spotted frog. Here are the tadpoles. And there's the underside of a tadpole. Now, the meadows are bordered, flanked by forest, and I usually pause, but when I went into this next meadow, I wasn't too careful, and I saw a doe bolting out to the side and something, a little animal behind. I thought, was that a fawn? So I spotted that and I crept down. It was amazing how hard it was to find a reddish brown and white spotted coat in green marsh grass. It's amazing how they can get down there and really camouflage and hide themselves, even in green grass. And I wanted to get a picture so we could kind of see the head and the rest of the body, not just a patch of fur. So I had to raise up to get the picture, and I'm afraid I scared the little guy. And he'd had enough of that. So, well, that picture isn't on here. He ran away. Here's a Columbia ground squirrel. They don't drink any water, according to the field guide, and they spend 75% of their life underground. Elephant head. Lewis and Clark identified this near Missoula in 1806, and they called it Greenland lousewort. Here's the individual flowers. You can see those individual flowers have a trunk and a head. They're similar to an elephant's head. This is a slender-leafed penstemon. Flowers are bundled on the top. There you can see the slender leaves. Close up of the flower and a burned area in the background. There are several miles of burned areas. Elk thistle. Bears and elk eat these young plants, and humans eat the peeled stems. Another patch of vegetation, moss and sedges and other plant material. And the still water beside this, it appeared to be like oil, but I'm pretty sure this is ferric oxide. Iron precipitates out and floats on there. There's no evidence of any motor oil in Meadow Creek. Now this is a buttercup that I think is a different species. The common name of this one is ugly buttercup. That's the name. But note the long stems off a main stem. This is probably mountain buttercup. It has shiny yellow and egg-shaped petals. Another spotted frog in the clear water of Meadow Creek. Showy daisy, big patch of them. And here's a bunch beside Meadow Creek. And here's a close-up of showy daisy. Here's a burned area, recovering. And in the middle you can see that patch of something growing. Shaggy mane. A mushroom, and note the edges and the gills are turning black, forming spores for reproduction. And in the back, that young one is a choice edible. Those are very good to eat. Another Columbia ground squirrel, this time by his burrow. And this one is in front of a bunch of bare grass. White-crowned sparrow. Paintbrush. The colors there are bracts, not petals, and the bracts actually cover up the true flowers below. Here's a mushrooms and an unidentified growth on a young lodgepole pine. These are polypore fungi, and research is finding that polypore fungi are very essential to the health of the forest ecosystem. In fact, fungi are in their own kingdom along with plant and animal kingdoms, and scientists estimate there are 1.5 million species of fungi. There's a close-up of that unidentified growth. And you can see some moss growing down below. Now this is a young Boletus edulis. And it's a choice edible. And the rodents, chipmunks, have already found that out. But you can see it's a polypore. The bottom of the cap is pores. That's where the spores are formed, not gills. And science is finding that that whole kingdom of fungi is very vital to every ecosystem on Earth. Now, what little tan mushroom is this? About 2 inches tall. Probably an expert mycologist, mushroom hunter, I don't know what it is. It may be one of those 1.5 million that's not been identified yet. This is bracted lousewort. The little bracts on the bottom green hold up the flowers right beside Meadow Creek. A shrub I thought I'd be able to identify because of the shredded bark, but when I checked the guides, the leaves didn't match, so unidentified. This is my amazing view at supper time at 4 Mile Creek. Those snags and the various shades of gray and the blue sky present a very beautiful scenery. And standing dead trees are just as important as standing live trees in a forest. The red-naped sapsucker, Spirapicus nucellus. And the genus name comes from 2 Greek words, spheros, meaning hammer, picos, meaning pecker, woodpecker. And the bright red. And this woodpecker, research shows that they hammer out cavities, nest cavities, 10 times more cavities than other woodpeckers. And so they got 9 extra cavities out there for other birds, and they only use 1. The female red-naped sapsucker. And the distinguishing feature, they're not quite as red, and there's a little bit of a white underneath there. And the nape is in the back. That's the nape of a bird in the back. Now here they are. Looks like the male is just flying out from his job of incubating the eggs, and the female's waiting to go in. And he was hightailing it out of there, saying, well, he's done, it's her turn. And they do share in incubating the eggs and in feeding the brood of nestlings. Both parents share in that job. Mountain bluebird by a nest hole in a burned lodgepole pine. Female, note there's an insect in the beak to feed the nestlings. And tree swallows use those extra woodpecker holes. This is a flycatcher in the willows on the banks of, I had to stay there 2 days. These things were hard to photograph. And if you consider the upper beak dark, the lower beak paler, and a thin eye ring, it would be a willow flycatcher. But if you consider a dark bill and a white eye-ring, then it would be a least flycatcher. I'm not sure which it is. Here it is, the same species in that area, sitting in a conifer tree, and here's its favorite perch. And you look at that and you say, well, that's a paler colored beak. And the eye-ring, I guess you could call it. It's probably a willow flycatcher, but any birders in here would maybe know better and let me know what you think it is. Here we are back where I started, got in the car, driving back home to civilization. And I pondered what friends have told me. They said they think it's dangerous for you to be backpacking solo in wildlands. And I got home a few days before the 4th of July. And here I am at 1 in the morning in my pajamas spraying water on the side of our house, because this is the Table Rock fire. And it got even closer. Thank goodness the winds were in our favor, and we had a defensive space, and the fire department was there. And it was started by a 19-year-old male Homo sapiens. Sapiens is Latin for wise. And he illegally set off firecrackers up there, and here we are. And on top of that, I found out that my wife had an injured leg and is severely swollen from a bicycle accident. And so I concluded that it's dangerous living in civilization. And it's safe being out in the wilderness all by yourself. Well, thank you very much. And any questions or comments, I'd be willing to talk with the audience. Yes?
How did you take those pictures of those nymphs?
Yeah. Yeah, I was hoping that would catch somebody's attention. It wasn't an underwater camera. I pack an aquarium with me. And it's a little aquarium. In fact, I can show it to you after this is over. I brought it along. It weighs 1 ounce. It has gravel with it and everything. That's my gravel. And the clear water, of course, from Meadow Creek is so clear. And that aquarium and the gravel weighs 1 pound and 2 ounces. That's where I finally got my food. I tried to get my food down to 1 pound per day. I can't seem to do it. I can get it down to 1 pound, 2 ounces, so all I have to do is carry the aquarium and sacrifice 1 day's of food. Yeah, you're supposed to live 30 days off food. I can surely fast for 1 day. But that's how I do it. And I can show you the aquarium later. Yeah, after this.
How many days were you out altogether?
15 days. And 2 of those days, it was light drizzle, heavy drizzle, light rain and snow. And I was completely soaked for 2 days. But I want to tell you, wool is the answer. When you have wool, even though it's wet, it keeps you warm. I have wool gloves, medium wool pants, wool shirt, with polypropylene underneath the shirt to wick moisture away. And it's amazing. You're soaked and you're warm. If these people that go out in blue jeans, if that had been me with blue jeans, I'd have been dead. Blue jeans kill you out there. That's the worst thing you have. Cotton is the work of the devil. You got to have wool.
Yes.
How was that, 35 minutes?
What about an hour?
Oh. Well, I had some little problems here.
So how heavy was your pack when you started out?
Yeah.
That's another good question. My camera, I used to have, I finally switched to digital. I've got film camera. And by the way, if you want more of this, I have my card back there. I have a 25-year biodiversity study that I did. My son did the work, over 1,000 images. So pick up my card if you haven't had enough tonight. And that's all my film camera stuff. I'm starting a digital file now. But that digital camera, I knocked 10 pounds off of my camera and lens weight. That's the advantage of digital now. It really, film camera is heavy, the lenses. And this thing just has a zoom lens 25 to 400. And then the 400 you can go to optical extend to 800. And now it's a Panasonic, so these are Leica lens. It's amazing. That lens, well, it's sharp. And 800, you can get those bird pictures up close. 400's better because it's sharper, but you can't always get that close. And that knocked 10 pounds off my pack weight. So now I'm down, starting out for 15 days, you know, you're talking about 16 pounds of food. You know, pound, 1-2 ounces a day. So I'm around 60 pounds starting out. Well, that's why only 2 to 3 miles a day. You know, if I go 4 or 5 and push myself, then I stay in that camp an extra day. So that puts me down to 2 miles a day again. So, because these sites, you know, well, and there's a lot of things to see and do there at these sites, so I don't feel badly about staying an extra day.
All your photos are handheld?
No, I have a tripod. That buck going across the river, so I have my tripod sitting there when I have my camp and I eat, so I can, at a moment's notice, and sometimes they go through during midday, and it's on a tripod sitting there in the shade, you know, ready to go, and I've got electronic release. Those sharp images, you want a sharp image, you get a tripod, even just pushing your finger on there can shake it a little bit. But a lot of times you get, now on my hiking, oh, that's the other thing. You got to have a hiking pole. Everybody should have a hiking pole to go across streams and steep places that are slippery so you don't fall down, and slick places. And on the tripod, or on the hiking pole, you can take the head off, and then it becomes a monopod for your camera. And then you scope it down, and you can get down on your knees like this and just prop yourself like this, or get down like this and on that, and that's solid. And then you just gently push it down, and you can get real sharp images. Another way is on the side of a tree. I got some sharp images of a black-backed woodpecker by our primitive log cabin. And I take the camera and I put it against the side of the tree so it's solid. I would be on the right side of the tree, go like this, press it in there, it doesn't move. It's about as good as a tripod. But there's always a chance you could move if you're doing that sort of thing, but it worked pretty well. Because sometimes you don't have time to set up the tripod, you know. So the hiking pole is good, or just prop down. And if you got your, well, most of the time, yeah, I have my pack on, so you're solid because you got that weight, you're not moving. So you get down like this, and it gives you a good image. I can show you my camera too, and the aquarium.
All right, any other questions for Ron?
So how many people did you see out there in 14 days?
None. I was out there 14 days last year, and this year I was out 15 days, never saw a person. Then I was out on the, when we had the celebration at the Wilderness, Wilderness Gateway. I went after that celebration we had of the 50th anniversary of the Wilderness Act, and I went to the lower reach of Meadow Creek. But there, I did see 2 guys. Well, that was in the fall, so they were scouting out for elk hunting. I said, well, where are you guys from? And he said, we're from Massachusetts. Oh, really? How long did that take you to get here? 4 days. And they were there packing guns, revolvers, and they looked at me, and I had some pepper spray, and they said, you better have a gun here. These bears, you're going to get killed. I thought, you know, and I tried to explain. I had to be, you know, but they were. I said, you know, a bear. If you scare a bear, they can move 40 feet per second. You think you can draw your gun and get a good shot off in 2 or 3 seconds? And with the pepper spray, it's more like a shotgun. You know, but even that, you're going to have to move fast or have it ready. I've never had to use it, but I do bring pepper spray, just in case.